And I honestly felt that I needed to go out and build an agency where I could help people to improve their physical and the mental health, but especially leaders, especially people like me who were leading a company while my health and was failing. And ultimately, your physical and your mental health is your biggest asset. It doesn't matter ultimately what you do. Your business is a vehicle to get you to the life that you desire. And if you're not well enough to enjoy that life, then what are you looking for?
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. For today, we have Mr. Lee Chambers, and he's from all the way in the other side of the world in the United Kingdom. And I'm super excited to have him here because he is actually the first person that we are going to be asking about in terms of our physical condition, which is about sleep, health, nutrition. Guys, we haven't touched base about any of these things, even if the Leadership Stack podcast is about entrepreneurship, leadership, and management, and our physical state is super duper important to be able to perform well at work, leading people, and doing business. So, Lee, thank you so much for being in the show today, and we're super excited to have you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be on, Sean.
So you are the founder and CEO of Essentialize. Obviously, the logo is in your background. Really sweet that you have that there. I'm just wondering, where did the idea come from? Why Essentialize?
Okay, so the idea has been formulated probably over 12 years. And I initially run a video game company that I've run for 12 years, and I've just exited in June this year. Through that journey, I actually
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you, Sean. Through that journey, I built it up to a seven-figure company. And really, for a good part of that early journey, it was just me and a whole bunch of automations and a lot of work. But I managed to build that, and that ultimately gave me a certain standard of living. And then all of a sudden, I lost the ability to walk in 2014 through illness. And that really changed my mindset. It changed my worldview. As all of a sudden, I was trying to transfer from a wheelchair into my Range Rover and and all of a sudden, this societal success and all these other things that, I've got, that finance, that business paid for me to recover, paid for me to spend lots of time with my children. But it wasn't what I actually wanted to bring to the world and make a difference. And I honestly felt that I needed to go out and build an agency where I could help people to improve their physical and the mental health, but especially leaders, especially people like me who were leading a company while my health and was failing. And ultimately, your physical and your mental health is your biggest asset. It doesn't matter ultimately what you do. Your business is a vehicle to get you to the life that you desire. And if you're not well enough to enjoy that life, then what are you looking for? So I managed to flip that, and going through that process, I've done a lot of qualifications over the years in physiology and psychology, and brought all those together and said, really, when it comes to it, there's only a few essential things that are important in life, and everything else is trying to get you to those essential things. So why don't we get very clear on what those essential things are, that life that you want, the health, the energy, the clarity, your purpose, what do you want? And then build your life around that. And that really is what I do today, bringing that to entrepreneurs and small business owners, but also going into businesses and helping employees to change health behaviors, to look at how leaders can lead themselves first so they can empower others to lead themselves as well.
That's super cool. Now, I'm going to stem from that question because you mentioned this in your answer earlier. There are entrepreneurs who are pretty much in the same boat as you are. They have a business, they don't love it from deep within their hearts and soul, and they're thinking about another business, maybe another venture, or just daydreaming about something else that they could be doing and making money from. But you mentioned as well that what you were doing paid for your recovery and it pays the bills and helped you raise your kids and have a happy and healthy marriage, because the number one problem in marriage is money. The question now is, how do you know when it's time to exit and finally say, I've had enough of this, even if it pays for what I need, it's not what I want to do, and move on? When was that turning point in your life and how did it look like?
Yeah, so I think for so many committed, dedicated entrepreneurs, you're effectively on that train. You're on this train that you've built. You're on the tracks. You've got a target. You know where you're going. And what we don't do is we don't often stop and reflect and think, actually, I might just want to get off at the next stop and build a new train. Sometimes we work too deeply within our businesses and looking out to the future and starting to solve those problems today. That's something that I is both a strength and potentially a weakness sometimes. I'm so focused on being agile and dynamic and seeing what I'm going to start solving in the future that sometimes what I didn't do is actually look and reflect, is this what I want to do? And I think the beauty of entrepreneurship is it gave me both the resources, time wise and monetary wise, to keep doing different qualifications and to keep working in different industries. And what that gradually did is it started to chisel my character to find out what I actually wanted to do, what truly resonated with me. And as I went through that, I started to understand that if you can almost get clear on where your strengths lie, what you enjoy, what can bring value to the world, and what you can monetize, somewhere in the middle of those four circles, if you put them together, is exactly the business that would light you up, that would give you that desire, that legacy, that change you want to make. Because again, we've all got amazing gifts to bring. And so often we just end up going into a place where, we're just making profit. That's great. But it's a little bit more than that, if we be honest. Because I kind of think that if we look at it, profit, you need profit. Businesses don't live, not sustainable without profit. But is that the end goal? I almost equivalent it to, with my clients, to red blood cells. So human beings need red blood cells. No red blood cells, you're dead. But you don't live for red blood cells. And businesses shouldn't live for profit, should live to make a change, to bring value to the world, to do something empowering, enabling. And that's kind of the process I went through. I initially started out Phenom Games, the video game business, out of sheer desperation, and it was fueled by frustration. So I was told, I created a business plan for that business at 20, still in university, going through some mental health challenges, suffering with video game addiction, suffering with struggling to make the adolescent to adult transition. And I created a business plan and took it to a business advisor. And he said, Lee, this is a great plan. Watertight, figures aren't inflated. Realistically, this is a working business you've mapped out here. Forecasts are good. Everything looks plausible, but you're going to struggle. You're young, you're diverse, you've got a bit of an attitude problem, you're very rough around the edges, you're going to struggle. It's not an industry that's going to take kindly to a young, disruptive, curious upstart like you coming in, trying to change things. Why don't you go out into industry, shape those rough edges, and come back more chiseled, more polished? And I graduated in 2007 after going back into university after failing a year due to my mental health issues and the struggles I had around that. That was a really bad time, unfortunately, because I wanted to be and go into financial advisory. I love data and statistics. I love patterns, algorithms, but I also love helping people. And financial advisory is perfect for that. Could help people with the financial well-being while controlling the money, having that ability to use data, compounding interest, look at future projections. I love that. And that's what I wanted my career to be at that point. But as you can imagine, I get onto a graduate scheme at an esteemed national bank here in the UK at the end of 2007. And 6 months later, I'll lose all my professional training because it's defunded. $12,000 worth of training taken from me overnight. And then a few weeks later, I got made redundant. obviously the economic crash had hit. There was no other finance jobs out there. I had to move back in with my mum and dad. And that frustration and desperation of having my career plucked from me, from having my training taken, actually became the fuel, because the advisor who said, Lee, I don't think you can do it, I was like, I'm going to prove him wrong. I might be young, but I'm determined, and it's either going to happen or it's not, but I'm going all in. And I went all in, started from my parents' back bedroom. In 7 months, it had pretty much taken over the whole house, and my parents wanted me out.
You fill their entire house with video game stuff.
Yeah.
That's fun. So I wouldn't say that you didn't have any passion for that, because starting small and filling up your parents' entire house with video games, I would say you had some passion for this business, because you were, when a young person makes his first revenue net profit, it's just amazing, right? You have proven to yourself and to the world, yep, I can sell, yep, I can make money. And that fire took you so far until you exited, which is how many years?
12 years.
12 years. A lot of entrepreneurs are on that first train right now, and they're saying it's good, but it's not as good as when it was 3-5 years ago. And that's because a lot of entrepreneurs are great starters, but might not be great finishers, or might not be great people to maintain the business and grow it and scale it at a level that they want it to be. You chose the exit path. The question is, why exit instead of scale? And when in that 12-year timeline did you realize, I have to get off the next stop, I have to build another train?
I suppose what happened is I hit 6 figures of revenue within 7 months. Again, that passion had come from the fact that I'd been told I couldn't, the fact that I'd had to move back with my parents because I was reducing my overheads to try and build something. But some of it was actually fueled from the fact that I played video games a lot during my childhood. I had a Commodore 64, then an Amiga, and then I moved through all those processes. And I really channeled and really connected with video games. And I was highly competitive, playing at a very high level. What that actually transmuted to is I realized that there would become a point where playing for hours and hours, even when I was studying at university, why don't I transfer this energy, this passion to get better into a business that's going to be leveling up in life rather than leveling up in a game? And that really that's what rocketed me through. And all of a sudden, the business doubled in revenue for the first 3 years. I was able to buy my own house after 12 months. And to be honest, that needed to happen because my parents were about to put me on the streets anyway.
Just throw out everything.
I mean, that business pivoted a number of times over those years. But I suppose the point I realized is when I started to get more of an understanding that because that business had been fueled by frustration, because I was wanting to level up in life, I was building automations to ensure that I could continue to run it, but I wasn't leveraging other people's value enough. I was still very closed because it had come from a place of despair, really. I was very tunnel visioned. So I wasn't willing to delegate much at all. I was still micromanaging. I was working too much in the business, not enough on the business. And when I became unwell, that was like a lesson. It was like it had to happen to me to knock me out of that pattern of comfort. And at that point, I realized I either scale it and grow it and get the people in, or I keep it as it is, keep it maintained, and use it to aid my recovery and give me lots of time with my children before they start school. So I kind of chose a little bit of a hybrid where I did get some people in, but ultimately I kept it to a certain level. And it's a challenging industry because I know and have experienced the bigger you get, the more ferocious it gets. It's very, very competitive. And for years, I've managed to build to a level where I was not seen as a threat. And that was really integral because they left you alone. And by being left alone, allowed me to actually flow in this little channel of my own really well. Now, looking back, I could have done it differently. I was seeing competition as a threat rather than a challenge to actually step up into and, tackle. And that again is a mindset shift that I've gone through over these years. But when I went into hospital and was still running this company from a hospital bed with one hand, like I couldn't feed myself properly, I couldn't go to the toilet, I couldn't move, but I could still run a company with the one hand that I had working. Looking back, it was hilarious to even think about that. But I think it was at that point that I realized that this has all been fueled out of a lot of negativity, unfortunately. And while it's given me an amazing, chance to recover, while it's given me this time with my children before they start school, this isn't my bigger picture. It's not going to fulfill me. It doesn't feel fulfilling. I'm actually starting to not enjoy elements of it. And that fuel, that desire, entrepreneurialism, it's not easy. It's actually much easier to go and sit in a job. And you have to kind of have that passion. And it becomes a point where I stopped and was forced to reflect because I was stuck in a hospital bed, couldn't move, get an awful lot of time to think when you can't move around and you can't just be busy and doing stuff. And I think that everyone should take a bit of time away from the business. Even though at first I understand you're building that momentum, you're working really hard. You have to do that. At the start, unless you've got big investment, you're going to be wearing quite a lot of hats. But actually use that to think, these things that I don't enjoy doing, will I have enough passion to keep doing these at some point in the future? Because that's a really good acid test as to whether this is what you actually truly want to do. But it could be like it was for me, all of a sudden, a tool, an experience, because the things I've learned from that business now help me in the one that I'm running that really does resonate with me. It's not been a journey for nothing. It's been a journey where I've actually discovered myself through doing a business that after 10 years, I didn't enjoy anymore. But you have to find out what you don't enjoy because that'll guide you to what you do enjoy.